Good evening. A routine welding job turned into tragedy today when a chemical tank exploded, critically burning two men, one over 90% of his body. Lou Davis reports the men were rushed to City Hospital's burn unit.
The explosion occurred shortly before noon at the Alco Gravure plant, just a half-mile from BWI's main runway. According to officials, two workmen, identified as Philip Atkins and Terry Glab, were about to begin welding a joint in an underground container. The container had been used to store flammable material used in the printing process. It had been cleaned out, according to officials, but when the workmen tried to light the welding torch, the fumes exploded, severely burning the two men. They were taken to the burn unit at City Hospital. Anne Arundel County Fire Department Lieutenant Robert Stevens said they would investigate what caused the flash explosion.
At this point, we feel that it is safe, yes. We're going to be taking a reading with an explosive meter just to make sure. At this time, we do not anticipate any additional explosions.
How can something like this happen if the tank has been cleaned and is determined to be safe?
At this point, it's hard to say. We are going to investigate it and try to determine what exactly caused the explosion. Without interviewing the two people, the two injured subjects, it would be right difficult at this point to speculate.
Company officials would say only that all safety precautions were taken. But federal officials of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, are investigating the accident. Lou Davis, News Scene 2, Glen Burnie.
Atkins is listed in fair condition at the burn unit tonight, but Glab remains in critical condition. This is what happens when a tractor-trailer left unattended goes on a trip of its own. The driver had left his rig with the engine running in the 2100 block of Bolton Street. The truck eventually stopped at an apartment building in the 700 block of Lenox. On the way, it smashed a motorcycle, crashed in a dumpster and a mailbox. There were no serious injuries, but it did take a while to notify everyone about the damage. Samuel Holder and a friend thought they would deliver copies of an advertising circular early today about 1:45 before it was supposed to rain. But that trip ended in the shooting death of 21-year-old Holder. Three teenagers tried to rob him in the 1000 block of Leadenhall Street and failed. Then one of them fired a sawed-off rifle at Holder. Police are still looking for suspects. Bail was denied this afternoon for John Marvin Booth, one of 4 city jail escapees who was rearrested last night. Police responded to an anonymous telephone tip and arrested Booth at a bar in the 900 block of West Baltimore Street. 3 other escapees are still at large. Booth was considered the most dangerous of the 4. The arrest of 2 Baltimore County police officers for marijuana possession has prompted an investigation of 1 or 2 other officers who also may have possessed the drug. 25-year-old David Varner and 26-year-old Constance Jones were suspended after they were charged with 11 counts of possessing marijuana earlier this week. She pleaded for mercy, swore she would never do anything wrong again, but a Baltimore judge today sent a young woman to jail for embezzling over $175,000 from Hopkins Hospital. Judge Robert Hammerman said today the case proves white-collar crime doesn't pay. Lynn Alexander has the story.
22-year-old Teresa Holyfield was visibly upset when she arrived at court today for sentencing. She'd already admitted that over a 10-month period, working as a part-time cashier, she stole $171,458 from Johns Hopkins Hospital. She said she spent the money gambling or buying cars, furniture, clothes, and jewelry, and she also gave it away to family and friends. Today, she faced a possible 15-year jail term.
Assistant State's Attorney David Palmer says Teresa Holyfield is not the only defendant in this case. He says also on trial is the criminal justice system's treatment of white-collar crime.
Palmer, who sought a 5-year jail term and 5 years probation for Holyfield, pointed out that the money was stolen in more than 300 separate incidents.
Many courts have considered white-collar criminals anything but criminals and have merely said go into some program on the weekends.
This was Holyfield's first offense, and as she took the stand before sentencing, pleaded with Judge Robert Hammerman, tears streaming down her face, to allow her another chance to repay the money during a probationary period. Anything but jail. A character witness, David Tracy of the National Center for Institutional Alternatives, submitted a report that said Holyfield shouldn't go to jail. He said sending her to a halfway house, making her repay the money, and forced community service work would be better punishment. Palmer attacked the report, saying it was paid for by Holyfield and based on errors. Judge Hammerman said white-collar crime is a cancer in this society. Then he sentenced Holyfield to spend 1 year in jail, 5 years probation, make restitution to Hopkins, and perform more than 2,000 hours of community service. The jail term begins 3 days after Christmas. Lynn Alexander, News Scene 2, Baltimore Circuit Court.
Police are still considering charges against an Anne Arundel County supervisor. Herbert Porter was boss of a county maintenance crew but resigned when accused of stealing $13,000 worth of copper tubing from a county warehouse. An investigation found that 10,000 feet of the tubing has been taken over a 5-month period. Baltimore City is now ready to begin the process once again of trying to get cable television within the city limits. Mayor Schaefer said today that applications for the cable proposals will be released tomorrow beginning at 1 p.m. The mayor said at a news conference this morning that this is probably it for cable in the city. If we don't get it this time, we may not get it at all.
Now is the time. I feel that the atmosphere, I'll use that term, is again at the right time. Some of the pressures that were on before are no longer there. And if we don't make it this time, if we aren't able to move with the schedule that we have and as rapidly as we possibly can, and have a concurrence both of the Board of Estimates and the City Council, I'm not sure that we'll have cable television in the city of Baltimore for a number of years.
The mayor said Caltech and Cox, who bid before, will bid again for the franchise separately. And he said at least 2 other companies will also submit proposals. All applications must be returned to the city by March 14th. They remain at large tonight. A tavern owner convicted of murdering a friend gets a life sentence. 49-year-old Walcott Peary Jr. was sentenced in the shooting death of 27-year-old Robert McComas. Prosecutors said Peary shot McComas execution style after the unemployed steelworker broke into Peary's tavern in August of 1982. Well, the mayor went to court today to testify against a man he says pulled a false alarm from a city firebox. Susan White Bowden reports that the mayor was the only witness, and he wanted to do what he says he hopes any citizen would do to stop this dangerous and serious problem.
State your name, William Donald Schaefer, and your occupation, the witness was asked. Mayor of the city of Baltimore. Mayor Schaefer took the stand to tell what he saw on a Saturday morning in September. On the morning of September 24th, the mayor was riding in his limousine on East Baltimore Street. He said he looked out of the window and up at this firebox where he saw a young man put his hands up and onto the box. He said he couldn't actually see him pull the lever because he said he couldn't see through the box. He said the young man put his hand down, smiled at the mayor, and then walked slowly down the street. Schaefer testified that when he heard the fire engines coming down the street and found out that there was no fire, he remembered the young man with his hand on the firebox, and he gave that man's description to the fire chief. Arrested was 22-year-old James Reed. When Schaefer came into the court today, Reed was sitting in the gallery of the courtroom along with about 100 other people. The mayor was asked to pick out the man he saw pull the false alarm. Schaefer went to Reed and put his hand on his shoulder. Judge Stanley Clavin found Reed guilty, gave him an 18-month suspended jail sentence, but 24 months probation, during which time Reed must get treatment at a mental health clinic or go to jail. Coming to court was time-consuming and difficult for the mayor, and he said he can understand why some citizens say they don't want to get involved, but he's glad he did.
And if I hadn't have testified, the case would have been dropped. And undoubtedly, other false alarms might have been pulled. I hope that this will act as a deterrent, because I think it's a serious enough offense that it should be prosecuted, and if the person is guilty, I think something should be done.
Mayor Schaefer said sometimes firefighters get hurt answering false alarms, and he said that's criminal. I'm Susan White Bowden, News Scene 2, Central District Court.
Good evening. It was the 3rd deadliest fire in Baltimore history. 8 people died in an early morning blaze on North Monroe Street last week. 5 of them children. George Jefferson reports that the family today is reliving that tragedy by burying the victims.
At the front of the March Funeral Home Chapel were 3 white coffins, one for each of the 3 brothers, Quanta, Antonio, and Antoine Pumphrey, aged 3, 4, and 5. All died in the early morning fire on Monroe Street this past Friday. The cause of that blaze, which snuffed out 8 lives, is still under investigation. The chapel was full of family and friends. Many funerals are sad, but the feeling here today for this family that was hit so hard by tragedy was indescribable. Children's mother, Marie Fisher, still appeared to be stunned. The 3 boys had been temporarily staying at the family home on Monroe Street until she made other housing arrangements for them. Ministers tried to console the family, telling them that no one comes into this world to stay, that there is a plan for everyone. And the service ended with the children's hymn. The coffins, one after another, were taken from the chapel to the hearse. The boys were buried at Cedar Hill Cemetery. The ordeal for this family is not yet over. Tonight there will be another funeral service for 5 members of the same family who also died in the fire. Joyce Jefferson, News Scene 2.
The wake for the rest of the victims is scheduled for 6:30 this evening, with funeral services at 7 o'clock tonight. Baltimore Gas and Electric is helping charity provide home heating oil for poor people in Baltimore, but a group of local oil dealers say that's illegal. The utility company says heating oil to Catholic charities, oil at cost. The charity group then sells the fuel at below market rates to poor families. The Intercity Oil Dealers Association has asked the Public Service Commission to order BG&E to stop being a middleman.
Catholic Charities is trying to do a good thing, and we have no objection to them doing what they're doing. Our objection is with the gas and electric company going into the wholesale oil business.
The use of the storage and BG&E's purchasing power is vitally important if we are able to hold our prices down. If the complaint were upheld, we'd have to rent storage and probably pay more for the oil, and that means higher prices for the poor persons that come to us for help. We're sorry that the oil companies have decided to make this their Christmas present to the poor of Baltimore.
On News Scene 2 at 6 o'clock, Lynn Alexander will detail the charges against BG&E and tell us what the charity group is doing to fight back. The nation's retailers are enjoying their merriest holiday season in years. The government reports retail sales were up 1.9% in November. That's the 3rd straight month of healthy sales since a sharp drop back in August. If retail sales continue at this rate, the U.S. will end up with a 14.1% increase for the year. And the car industry is also celebrating after setting a sales record in November. The Baltimore subway has only been in operation for 4 weeks now, but already some downtown business people are saying it is helping their sales. But as with every story, Susan White Bowden says this one has 2 sides.
A visit to the Lexington Market subway station any noon hour, even on a rainy day, and you will see why many are saying that the subway has helped business at the Lexington Market and at nearby stores. People come from uptown and downtown to have lunch at the Lexington Market.
It's helped us quite a bit, bringing more people downtown than I've seen in a long time. People that I haven't seen for quite a bit. And I think it's going to do us good.
Jan Sleets, a Northwest Baltimore resident, is a dream come true for Metro officials and the Downtown Merchants Association. They would like to think that thousands and thousands in Baltimore will do as he did today on his day off.
I went to the hat company to look some things for Christmas, and I thought I would stop in here for lunch.
When Jan Sleets finished his lunch, he got back on the subway and went back uptown to Reisterstown Plaza. The problem is when he got on the train, he was carrying nothing but his umbrella. And that's why the merchants in the market who sell other than luncheon foods feel that the subway has not helped them at all.
Well, the ones that do come in the subway, they work in office building. And when they get off work, they go straight home. They don't stop in here to buy anything to take home. So we just got a little regular trade, and we're still hanging on, and that's about it. I says, the subway just won't help us. Quite a few of them come in here to eat and drink, but they don't buy nothing to take home. Don't they eat home no more?
The Lexington Market used to be primarily that, a market, a place to shop for food to prepare at home. The question is, will shoppers come on the subway to do that? If the subway is to really help the Lexington Market, the merchants tell me that the general public will have to realize that the market is more than just one big lunch counter. I'm Susan White Bowden, News Scene 2, Lexington Market.
The Merchants Association feels that the subway has not only helped the Lexington Market, but Harbor Place as well.